going on, guys? Welcome to the Peanut Gallery Podcast, episode 23. We have got a bombing show for you guys. I am totally Syria right now, but we're going to be rushing through it because we've got a lot to talk about.
Wow, that was good, bro.
I came up with that like 2 minutes ago. Pretty proud of myself.
I'm impressed. It's kind of culturally inappropriate.
That's all right. Don't care.
Should probably just give you a Pepsi.
There you go. That would probably solve everything.
Yeah.
All right, guys, if you didn't already know, this is the Peanut Gallery Podcast. This is the place that we provide our completely unprofessional and insignificant opinions about the most important and significant topics of the day. I'm your host, Jared, and with me, as always, is Seth, and we're going to jump right into what was nuts this week.
Still jumping.
I like jumping. Play.
I don't know.
All right, guys, we are back, and we're going to move right into the What Was Nuts section this week. And like we said earlier, Syria is the hot topic. We're going to talk about that in the main section. But now we got some pretty interesting stories we're going to run through.
Yes, so to start it off, it's a little bit on the Oculus Facebook front. So I'm sure you've heard of Facebook. Pretty much everyone is on Facebook nowadays.
What?
But a couple years back, they had bought a company called Oculus that makes these virtual reality headsets. They bought the company for like $2 billion. And the creator of that company, a guy named Palmer Luckey, was integrated into the Facebook what is that, like, hierarchy? Like, he was given a position at Facebook because of the buyout or whatever. Yeah, Colt. There you go. But then this past week, he announced that he's leaving Facebook, and a lot of people think that it's because during the campaign, he donated to some organizations that were deemed far right. And he says I'm a libertarian. He has supported like Ron Paul, Gary Johnson. But he gave like $10,000.
How outrageous!
To like I think it's called Nimble America. But anyway, he said that in his in a post he had to put out after like it came out that he donated. He's like, I'm deeply sorry for my actions if they negatively impacted anybody or the perception of Oculus and its partners, meaning Facebook. Mm-hmm. So you kind of had that situation. And then you also had last month, there was kind of a big lawsuit against Facebook with the actually the code used in the development of the Oculus. That some of it was stolen from a place where Lucky used to work. And I think they ended up settling for like $500 million. Or actually, no, they lost. Wow. Yeah, they lost for like $500 million. So Facebook's probably like, let's just distance
cut the ties.
Yeah, so he's gone.
Lucky was a little unlucky with this one.
He's gonna be fine. He got like $700 million.
Yeah. No, totally. This happened. I think it was back in 2010 with the CEO of Mozilla Firefox, where he donated, or he just talked about he had donated money to organizations that believed that marriage should be between a man and a woman, and there was no evidence of him treating, homosexual people or discriminating against them in any way. But he was forced to resign, and he got fired, and that's the same thing kind of happening here, it seems like. And I hate when that kind of stuff happens in business and forces someone, like, because he was very influential in the Oculus Rift. And
I'm a personal believer that I think VR is going to be a big thing in the future, and so he's going to be kind of one of the founders of this new technology. And I honestly probably do think he is probably like tired and wants something new. He seems like, if you listen to him speak, he seems like someone that's always wanting to do something new and invent something and just pour his
move
passion.
on to the next thing.
And so it probably was a little constraining at Facebook, and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with him. Hopefully it works out for him.
Yeah.
This next thing is pretty cool, man. This got to me at my core. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh. This story is actually about probably a lot of Japanese scientists that say that they believe that they're going to be the first to reach Earth's mantle. And if you don't know, what is that, geology? I don't know what that is. Rocks. If you don't know rocks. Jones. No, the Earth is like, there's like the crust, which is what we live on, and it's very, very small. It's like
a lot of layers.
It's like an onion. But anyway, they think that they're going to be the first people to drill past the crust and into the mantle of the Earth, which is like closer to its core. and I don't think we've actually never broken through the crust. So they say that they probably will have it by like 2029. I think is the tentative time frame. But they're building this giant floating drill platform. That's going to extend the drill like 2.5 miles below the surface and then bore another 3.5 miles of the Earth's crust. And
dude,
so,
well, if the Earth is anything like a pizza, then they're going to find some awesome stuff there. Because, like, I mean, crust is not the best part of the pizza. So we drill down there, we find, like, the greatest part of the Earth. You know what I'm saying? See, these are the things that we need to be thinking about. I'm gonna see if they'll put me on that team.
No, but think about it, bro. They're making a drill that goes 2.5 miles below the surface and then drills another 3.7 miles. That
is crazy. Yeah, that's totally crazy.
And I think it's cool because, I mean, we're always looking at space and stuff. Like, we haven't really even fully discovered what there is on Earth.
Yeah.
So this is kind of cool. Maybe we'll find, like, lizard people down there or something.
That's what I'm saying. I think they could help us.
Yeah, maybe they could help this next story, though, because it didn't sound like it was very successful.
Yeah, no. So we have Shia LaBeouf's huge movie, Man Down. If you
that's about when he got like wrecked for his, what is it? He will not
divide us.
Yeah.
He will not divide us. Yeah, no, if you haven't heard of that movie, it's probably because you haven't heard of that movie. But so it had a UK premiere, and it sold the equivalent of 1 ticket. It's worth over there. Now, to be fair to the movie, I guess it didn't open like across all the theaters or anything like that. It was in select theaters, but still, it's
just kind of funny. He's just kind of, that dude is a weird dude, man. Like,
yeah.
He does some like speech poetry. He put out some like rap diss songs against other rappers at one point last year. He's just a weird dude.
Did you ever see Holes a long time ago?
Yeah, that was a good movie.
That was a good movie.
I remember reading that book at elementary school, man.
Downhill from there, though. Downhill from there.
Transformers.
Yeah, the first one was the first
Megan Fox.
Cool. Yeah, that was the only good thing about the movie. I was 12 and there was Megan Fox.
It's a Transformer. So. You know, Michael Bay recently said that he has the scripts already made for the next 13 Transformer movies. That he's only going to do one more.
Yeah, all there has to be is explosions.
And yeah, it's just
Michael
the script
Bay,
is just
you're
like
good to go.
Boom,
kaboom.
But I was like 13. Holy crap!
Speaking of kabooms, gunshots, explosions.
Oh my gosh, that's like the segue for like the next 4 stories.
Yeah, true that. This happened. This happened maybe 2 weeks ago, but we had to talk about it.
Oh yeah, because it was completely ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous. So there was a home invasion where these 3 teens broke into this person's house. One of them was armed with brass knuckles, and one of them
one had like a club or something.
Yeah, something like that. And so the homeowner's son, I think.
Yep.
The homeowner's son grabbed an AR-15, and
the weapon of death.
The weapon of death, yeah, and shot and killed them all.
And unknowingly, he like doubled the murder number of AR-15 deaths in 2017.
That's pretty
because no one dies by AR-15s
no one
in
does.
America.
Exactly. And so the grandfather's response to this is he said
the grandfather of the kids that
the grandfather of the victims, yes, who died,
one of the victims
who broke in, said that the AR-15 made it an unfair fight. And then he said, quote, "Brass knuckles against an AR-15. Come on, who was afraid for their life?"
Yeah. And so his argument is that he didn't need to use an AR-15. He didn't need to shoot the 3 kids dead. But like what? Like, come on, let's be honest.
They weren't 13, by the way. When they say teenagers, they were 17 years old. Or his particular grandson was. If you break into someone's house and you get shot, that is fine.
The idea that if someone breaks into your house that they should have a fair fight against you, no. If you're breaking into my house, it needs to be as unfair against you as it can be.
Exactly. That's the point of owning an AR-15, right?
Yeah, it's not to hopefully I can match this guy that's breaking in. No, it's to overwhelm and defend you without having to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, yes, of course, it's tragic that these people died, but on the other hand, it's really
natural selection. You know, like, come on,
if
man.
you
You're
break into someone's house,
why?
what are you going to expect? Especially when you're breaking into somebody's house with weapons.
And just assume everyone's house has weapons, and there you go.
I have no
Unless
sympathy.
You're in, like,
I have no
California.
sympathy for these people at all.
No. And the grandfather's an idiot.
Yes, he is an idiot. I also
know who else is an idiot?
There you go.
The main character of our next story.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think we can all agree that Hillary Clinton totally lost the election, not because she was a terrible candidate and investigated by the FBI twice, but because she was a woman.
She said in a recent interview with the New York Times, and I quote, "Certainly misogyny played a role. I mean, that just has to be admitted."
Of course.
Like, what?
It just has to be. There's no proof of it or anything, But there just has to be. There just has to be racism because certain races earn less money than other races.
Yes.
And there she just has to be a misogynistic culture because she lost the election.
Like, there's no way I could have won if it wasn't because of this. No, it's because you sucked.
Yeah.
And we were tired of career politicians.
Yeah.
Luckily, though, she did say that she doubted she would ever run for office again.
Well, yeah, she's going to be like 105.
I think it's Bernie you're thinking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yes.
That's just ridiculous. But, man, every time I hear her talk, I just think, I'm so glad she's not the president.
Dude, it's like the greatest.
It is.
Oh,
it is. Next up, we have Neil Gorsuch confirmed to the Supreme Court. So this was kind of a controversial take on it. I'm going to say what I think real quick, and then you can jump in.
Yep.
My opinion on this, obviously it's controversial because the nuclear option was used in order to get Neil Gorsuch in. Of course, Harry Reid did this back in 2013 when they were trying to appoint lower-level judges to different courts.
So what does the nuclear option mean? Why don't we explain that?
Okay, so anyone who doesn't know, there can be a filibuster whenever the president appoints somebody and the Senate confirms it. And whenever another party filibusters, it requires 60 votes instead of a simple majority of 51. So if you impose the nuclear option, which was done, it then eliminates the 60 vote need and then just turns it into a simple majority. If they get 51 votes, the person's appointed. So Senator Harry Reid did this back in 2013, like I was just saying. The Republicans just did it now. If you were a Democrat and you're criticizing the Republicans for doing it now and you didn't criticize Harry Reid in 2013, you're a hypocrite. If you're a Republican who criticized Harry Reid of doing it in 2013 and you're not criticizing the Republicans now, you're a hypocrite. My personal opinion, I don't think it's a big deal. It was never in the Constitution to begin with. The founders did not intend for the Senate to have a supermajority to confirm appointees from the president. So I don't really care, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, and I'll echo a lot of what you said because I really don't think it's a big deal. I wonder, like, it kind of reduces the power of the minority party, and I just worry that it'll bite the Republicans in the butt down the road because they'd have to vote to have it reestablished.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to have, if you want an amendment to the Constitution to require 60 votes to confirm appointments, then that's a discussion you can have. And
is there like an undo option for the nuclear? Can they vote
no.
Okay,
it's done now.
So like in the future nuclear. Now, if the Democrats get 51 seats, the Republicans are powerless, whereas before they would have had a little more way.
Yeah,
but I think the Democrats were.
It would have been the nuclear option would have been invoked by any party who needed to use it, right? Because the Democrats proved that they were going to do it, and the Republicans proved that they were going to do it. It was going to go away regardless anyways. Yeah, so I'm really not too worried about it. And I'm glad that Neil Gorsuch was on the Supreme Court because I think he's an excellent pick.
I think it's a misogynistic pick, honestly. I have to say. It has to be admitted.
Somehow. It does. Certainly it plays a role. Yes. Speaking of, we have the Bill O'Reilly sexual assault allegations.
Yeah, this has been blowing up this past couple weeks.
Yeah.
With advertisers dropping like crazy from the O'Reilly factor. I think it's up to like half a dozen, or not half a dozen. I think it's up to like 24 advertisers have now pulled their advertisements from the O'Reilly factor specifically, and just rearranged it to other places on Fox News. And if you haven't been in the political sphere and hearing about this, a ton of women have come forward. I think up to like 5.
Yeah, I think it was
women, 5 or so have come forward and talking about sexual assault allegations on Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one thing people saying, but over the decades, there's proof that they've paid out $13 million in settlements against former women that have brought up allegations. And you don't settle, I think,
typically,
unless you're guilty.
I think sometimes people will settle just to stop
$13 million
stop the press.
Worth?
I mean, that's a lot of money, but when you look at how much
women?
I'm not defending Bill O'Reilly at all, but when you think about how much money and revenue he brings into Fox News, I mean, he brings in over an estimated
he's like the
$100 million a year. He has the biggest show on cable news. So for them to just be like, throw $13 million at it over a decade to just try and keep it quiet, I can see happening, but I could also totally see with his personality. A couple of people that I respect and stuff like that have talked about their experiences at Fox News and have talked about how his character maybe has come into question and things that he said a couple of times.
Well, I've never liked him. I just, his interviews when he brings someone on, he's totally dismissive.
He's a bulldozer.
And he doesn't listen. And I I don't think I can see him being taken off air, even though I think that he probably should. Or I don't know. I would want a company to not want to stand by someone that does this stuff. Well, I mean, there was one settlement in particular that was $9 million to a producer.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's a lot. Well, and especially people are going to be more inclined to believe it, too, with obviously Roger Ailes had to step down because of his sexual assault allegations. So I think there's kind of a culture. He was ahead of Fox,
right, or something?
Yeah, he was way high up at Fox. There's kind of a culture of that brewing at Fox that it seems like is kind of slowly slipping out.
Yeah, because they're horrible people there.
Yeah. All right, guys, this last story that we're going to get to, it's a really tragic story. Over in Egypt on Palm City, there was a bombing.
Palm Sunday.
Palm Sunday. What am I saying?
Palm City's where I used to.
Don't laugh at that. This is bad. Anyways, in Egypt, on Palm Sunday, over 44 people were killed in a bombing.
2 bombings.
In 2 bombings, yeah, 2 explosions targeting Christians on Palm Sunday happened, and I mean that's really tragic, obviously.
Yeah, there was 2 separate churches in Egypt. Northern Egypt, and ISIS, of course, has taken credit for them and saying, I mean, I guess the Christians, from what I've read from a quick research on this, because this has been going on for a while, the Christians in Egypt have been getting persecuted a lot by the Islamics, the ISIS, I guess I wouldn't want to say all Islam, but ISIS specifically, and they had said that there are going to be these attacks, and it's so dirty to just, because they knew Palm Sunday, that's a pretty big deal if you're not a Christian. It's a pretty big deal for Christians. It's leading up to when they believe that Jesus sacrificed himself. And so they knew there would be a lot of people there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I mean, 44, it's horrible. I mean, that's a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
And I think it was up to 78 injured at least.
Oh, yeah.
Probably higher than that
and
now.
And sure, more in critical condition.
Yeah, so it's,
Thoughts and prayers out to them, and, hopefully, somehow some good will come of this.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that is going to wrap up our What Was Nuts this week, and we are going to move right into the main topic. All right, guys, we're going to move right into the main topic this week, and of course, we're going to be talking about the big news that happened over this weekend. On Thursday night, the United States shot off, some reports say 59, some reports say 60 Tomahawk missiles into a Syrian airbase. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what we think about it first. But before we do that, we're going to give a little bit of context to the Syrian Civil War. It's been going on since 2011. Bashir Assad is the ruler of Syria then, and he still is now. There was kind of an uprising known as the Arab Spring, because Assad has not been the nicest to his people.
He's kind of a horrible person,
to say the least. Yeah, he's not great at all. And so there was protesting and stuff like that. The Arab Spring wanted to overthrow Assad and get him out of Syria. And basically what happened is Assad responded pretty brutally, trying to kind of nip in the bud, would you say, this kind of rebellion by exercising extreme military force in the beginning. After about a year of this rebellion, there are estimates of over 8,000 people, mainly civilians, have been killed in Syria. So it was really not a good situation for a lot of Syrians during that time. And then this happened in 2012. A Syrian Foreign Ministry spokesman, Jihad Makdisi. There you go.
Nailed it.
Sorry, I'm not too worried about it. He threatened to use chemical and biological weapons against Syrian civilians. So he said no chemical or biological weapons will ever be used unless Syria is exposed to external aggression, which of course they were when other countries jumped in to meddle in the Syrian Civil War. So, then allegations were shown that Syria and Assad used chemical weapons in 2013 to gas civilians and rebels and stuff like that to try and really discourage them from rebelling against his regime. The Obama administration then in 2013 claimed that Assad had crossed a major red line. He was condemned from a lot of different countries, the EU, the UN, all that kind of stuff. He had crossed humanitarian lines and everything like that. So then the United States, the Obama administration, and Russia correlated together to remove the chemical weapons from Assad and the Syrian regime, and apparently they weren't removed.
Yeah, apparently
because
not.
Here we are, 3 years later.
Yeah, so that's that's like the history of Syria, and it's kind of just a mess, man. I mean, you have, like you said, Assad, and Assad's being backed by Russia, and Iran, I think.
Yeah, being
And then
backed
you
by
have the rebels fighting them, and they're being backed by like the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah,
and
Saudi
us.
Arabia is a big one. Turkey's a big one.
And then in the middle of it all, you have ISIS blow up and become a thing, and now they're in the middle and they're kind of fighting both, and it's just a mess over there. But what happened was there was a reports that Assad used chemical weapons again on a rebel city. I don't have the city's name in front of us, but at least 86 Syrians dead, dozens injured. If you've seen anything, it was all over the news where I was looking, and you saw like kids and people,
blood coming out of people's noses and mouths. Yeah,
it was just absolutely horrible. And Trump responded like very quickly within days.
Yeah, 2 days.
Condemning it and saying that he crossed the line, and we're going to destroy the air base that they used to disperse the chemical weapons.
It's important to note this is the first time that the United States ever directly attacked the Syrian
was any
army.
Involvement? Because we've kind of been supplying, and there's been
we had been
reports
supplying and arming the rebels, which then turned out to be rebel off and be ISIS, which didn't work out too well for us.
Yeah.
But we had never directly attacked Assad at all. This is the first time that we'd done.
And so yeah, it's 60 Tomahawk missiles, and it was reported to not have been meant to injure or kill people, but more of disable the airfield and send a message that we will not tolerate chemical weapons being used. It's against the Geneva Convention. It's kind of just like a horrible thing to do. And after we did that, I mean, I think the immediate reaction from everyone was, that's awesome. These actions going on over there are like horrendous and horrible.
Yeah.
And you had the UK Defense Secretary standing with us, and also even going so far as to claim that Russia is responsible for every civilian death, because Russia was one that said that they are going to dismantle the chemical weapons, and had said that they had destroyed all of the chemical weapons, and obviously they hadn't.
And the United States echoed that as well.
Yes,
back in 2013.
They said our Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said on Sunday that Moscow had failed to carry out the agreement to secure and destroy the weapons, and that, quote, the failure related to the recent strike and the recent terrible chemical weapons attack in large measure is a failure on Russia's part to achieve its commitment to the international community. So, Russia doesn't like that pretty much everyone's saying it's their fault and that they took a hit. And that was a big concern from me personally after I'd heard about it. Was like, what? Because I had known a lot about it. I knew that Russia was involved, and that we obviously don't want to poke Russia when we don't need to, because I don't think they're predictable at all. But now it's come out that Russia and Iran have come out and now said that they've warned the U.S. that they will respond with force if those red lines are crossed in Syria again. So if we intervene directly again, they have threatened us with force. Yeah. And they've also pulled a non-conflict agreement for the airspace around Syria. And so, I mean, what do you think about this, dude? Like, it's very complicated, and there's no like this was the right thing or the wrong thing.
It's definitely a complicated issue. I mean, if you take it back to the beginning of the Syrian Civil War in 2011, then you could say, like, I mean, make no mistake, this is the legacy of Barack Obama's foreign policy. This is not Trump's fault at all. I mean, Barack Obama put us in this position with his completely failed interventionist kind of foreign policy that he had going in Syria the past 3 years. So it's a hard position that he was in, honestly, and I think the timing of it. So I'll just start off with the timing of it. I thought the timing of it was very interesting, and I don't think they planned it this way, obviously, because it would take a mastermind. But I mean, you have a lot of people are now talking about the Syrian fiasco that's going on there instead of the Russian ties now with Trump. Nobody's really talking about that because he just totally pissed off Vladimir Putin a lot, so I think that plays into his favor. I mean, you might have the mainstream media still talking about it, but the average person is going to be like, no, Trump just ticked off the Russians. I don't think he is in bed or bought out by the Russians.
You think that was...
I'm not saying it's intentional.
I'm
not saying it's intentional, but I'm saying the timing of it worked out in his favor. For sure.
Well, I mean, I would think that these Russian allegations are going to go on for pretty much his whole presidency because I honestly don't think there's any proof because I haven't been shown any proof, and so they're just going to draw it out forever.
I think this helps Trump in that arena, though.
It does,
to the
for
average
sure.
person.
And it makes it look like, so yeah, he has ties with Russia, yet he's willing to push the envelope this much.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can go even more conspiratorial and be like, well, this was on purpose so that it would kind of, like you had said, like he knew he could push him this much and Putin really isn't mad.
I don't think that happened. I think right now Putin would much rather have Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama as the president as opposed to Trump.
Clinton was doing her New York Times interview before we fired back, and she said that Trump needed to fire and destroy the airfield.
She says a lot of things. She was Secretary of State for a long time. Nothing happened.
Yeah, I know.
But anyways, not to get too tied up in that. So I thought that was interesting. Although I'm really torn on this, honestly, because every time the United States has tried regime change, I mean, look at Libya. It doesn't work out that well. Yes, Assad is a terrible person, and people are like, why would the Russians ever back Assad? Yes, he's terrible. I agree with you. But Assad, at least, if you look at the history of it, has kept Syria somewhat stable before the Civil War. So if you take out Assad, who's going to replace him? ISIS?
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it's a very dangerous waters to be in, but then you're also like, well, the United States has the means and the ability to stop these atrocities that Assad is committing. So do we spend the political capital and the troops, boots on the ground, the money, the time, the resources, and all this kind of stuff to stop it? And what I really think is this strike definitely instilled that America is kind of back as a world leader, that they're not afraid to show that they will use military force anymore. It sent a strong message to all of our allies that we are back and we are going to defend them. And it's also sent a strong message to all of our enemies that we're not weak on foreign policy by any means. Yeah. Now, I don't think that the United States should be the policeman of the world, but I think no matter what, with the world as global as it is right now, there will always be a leader in the world. And obviously I'm an American, but I would want it to be the United States over China or Russia any day.
Yes.
But I think there's I think there's a middle ground, right? I mean,
well, I mean, it really comes, I mean, maybe there's a middle ground, but I'm just thinking, like, should we have fired or should we have not? And like my heart says yes because I saw the pictures and it was horrible, but at the same time my brain is like, it's horrible, but there's horrible things happening everywhere. Are we taking the responsibility that every time we see something horrible on the news that we're going to do something? Like, should we go into Egypt where we just saw the 44 die? Should we go into Africa where we've seen horrible things happening, genocides happening? Yeah. Like, where's the line? Like, when do we say, okay, we're only going to be policemen for this much? And I think personally, that it was the right decision because I think of all you said with our military might. I think it's important to stress that we're back and not as weak as we were. But also, I think it's different when there's things that, like chemical warfare, where this has been outlawed. They didn't like, oh, I had no idea I wasn't supposed to do this. Like, they knew that they'd be pushing the line.
World War I.
Yeah, they knew it would be crossing a line when they used it. When they used it back in 2013, they knew, and we did nothing. Yeah. And so I think that it sends I think it will make someone rethink if they are going to do that. And so I think that might be where there could be a line drawn. I don't know if there is, but maybe that could be a place where you draw a line. Well, if there's things that break rules of war, that's when we step in. But I would hope also, like what happened here, we had the UN back us. There was an open door meeting actually with the United Nations a couple of days after, and France backed us, UK backed us. Like, they were saying some harsh stuff about Assad and Russia, and that they for one, Nikki Haley is freaking awesome.
She's on fire.
Yeah, she was saying that any country that chooses to defend the atrocities of the Syrian regime will have to do so in the full public view. And this was in regards to the fact that Bolivia and Russia wanted it to be a closed-door meeting so that, you know? And so she was like, no, we're going to talk about this because this involves the world. There is chemical weapons used. We did this. Nations are backing us. We need to know and see where everyone stands and not keep it hidden, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I agree with that. The only problem is that when you have Russia and China, who both kind of back Iran and Assad and stuff like that, it doesn't really matter what
any
France.
instance of China being involved with this.
Well, there have been multiple settlements and stuff like that, and sanctions that the U.S. has tried to impose and the UN has tried to impose, and Russia and China have both vetoed it. Okay. So, like, yeah, it's good that we got backed by the EU and stuff like that, but when you look at the EU versus Russia, it's really the U.S. and some of the European nations versus China and Russia, if it were to be into any kind of global conflict. But what do you think happens now? Like, my personal opinion with it, there can be three options here that happen. One, we can go the John McCain, Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham approach, which I am not a fan of. We can put boots on the ground. We can put all of our military might into Syria and really try and overthrow Assad and destroy ISIS, and whatever ramifications come of that, whether it's Russia, attacks us and we get in a war with Russia, then that happens. That can either happen. We can either completely pull out and not be involved with it at all, in which case Assad would then, most likely with the backing of Russia and Iran, take back over Syria. He already took over Aleppo. So he's kind of winning this fight right now.
Wait, what's Aleppo?
Yeah, right? Okay, Gary Johnson.
Aleppo was the capital of the rebels.
Syria. Yeah.
And so when Assad took it, it was a big blow.
He
was kind of winning the war, which you had
that was kind of like the turning point.
Yeah, not to cut you off, but we were talking about this earlier. It's weird that he did the chemical attack. Like, not to just talk about our retaliation, but he, like you said, he was pretty much winning.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't make sense to me why he would do this. And now, of course, there's people saying, no, he didn't do it. I mean,
Russia is adamant.
Russia is completely denying it. There's part of Trump's base who loved Trump, kind of the more alt-right, who's now super ticked off at Trump, saying he shouldn't have been involved at all. The rebels did this to try and get, the rebels tried to get the backing from the U.S. But it really doesn't make sense to me why Assad would tick off the United States and, maybe cause them to intervene in Syria when he's winning the fight, right? That doesn't make sense to me. But to finish my last point, and then you can go on, the United States can kind of keep with the containment of Assad, not let him really spread out that much to try and take over any new territory, and then directly fight ISIS. Because Assad right now is not fighting ISIS at all. ISIS is fighting the Kurds and the other rebels, and not really Assad that much. So Assad and Russia aren't fighting ISIS. When people talk about, just let Russia take out ISIS, Russia does not fight ISIS at all. Because ISIS, no, they don't.
They've condemned it a couple times.
They've condemned them, yes, but they have never taken any military action against ISIS at all, because they like the fact that ISIS is fighting the rebels and the Kurds, which makes it
helpful
easier.
For Assad.
It's helpful for Assad, yeah. And of course, Russia is going to publicly condemn ISIS. It looks good, but they have never done any type of military strike against ISIS at all. Russia and Assad are not fighting against ISIS, really. They like that they are there to detract from the Kurds and the rebels. Currently, yes. I mean, after they beat the rebels and the Kurds, they would go and they'd go after ISIS. But right now, it's convenient. So, yeah, basically, I think what I would like to see happen is hopefully this is a pinprick operation that's saying, hey, the United States force is back. We're not going to let these atrocities go unpunished. We're obviously a major player here, again, in the global sphere. We're not going to interfere that much. We're going to continue directly trying to fight ISIS and kind of completely eliminate them. And then, Assad has said that once he takes back Syria that he'll step down and they'll form some kind of democratic thing. I don't think that'll happen. I don't trust that at all. But I think our primary target should be ISIS, not Assad. Because if we take out Assad before we take out ISIS, who's going to take over Syria? So I think we need to be targeting ISIS more than Assad right now, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, I think I could get down with that if we were targeting ISIS specifically, but then we had, like, in our peripheral, we had Assad going, and we're just like, listen, if you do break it again and you chemical weapons, we're gonna retaliate again, but until then, we'll leave you be. and let you do your thing. And it's one of those things that is actually, this was all going on, I was really thinking back to the book that you had mentioned, was it 1 or 2 episodes ago, about empathy.
Yeah.
And this is a point, I think, where if you got lost in the empathy for the victims and the Syrians that got gassed, and you were just like, we need to protect them, but you don't think about the world scope, I think you'd come to a very
your
good conclusion, I guess, would be the best way to say it, because it's horrible what they did. But like we had said earlier, I don't think we should be the world policeman. We cannot afford to be the world's policeman.
We can't. It won't work. We can't solve the world's problems.
No, we can barely solve our problems.
Yeah, we're failing at that.
You know, and I mean, ISIS has attacked us, and I think that they should be taken out. And I honestly don't understand how they're still around. Honestly. Yeah. Especially because I learned that they actually have like a freaking capital that we know about. Why can't we?
They have their own caliphate, their entire city within Syria.
Can't we just carpet bomb that garbage? I don't know. I'm not a military commander, but I'm not a math guy.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a really tough situation to be in because, like we were talking about, I honestly don't. I guess the big question is, does the Trump administration have a plan for this, right? Was it completely reactionary? Because before they had released the gas on the citizens, they had said that they're going to leave Assad alone. They're going to stay out of Syria. Trump and Rex Tillerson both had said that. And then when it turns out that he gassed his own people, reaction. They both, launched 60 Tomahawk missiles in there. And then so I feel like you have to have a cohesive plan. If what happened was after that gassing, Trump got together with his generals and his military experts and was like, all right, guys, let's have a plan to really stop this and implement this over the course of the next couple weeks, then I think that's good. But if he's just reacting to it and sending off these missiles because he doesn't have a coherent plan on what he wants to do foreign policy-wise, then I think that's a real problem, because we saw if it's not planned out well, you have Syria instantly retaliated and flew a jet over the rebel forces and bombed the crap out of them. You have Russia advancing, coming in, putting up more anti-missile defense systems and stuff like that, saying that if any U.S. or rebel jets fly in this airspace, we'll shoot them down. It's made it harder for Israel to launch rockets over in Syria if they're ever threatened. So unless it's followed up with a cohesive plan, our action really could have hurt and hindered the rebels and Israel during this process. Yeah. So it's really a tough situation. And I mean, what I'll leave it with before I bounce it to you is it really depends on what is followed up after this strike. Right. To determine if it was really a good idea or not, in my opinion. So. Yeah.
And I think in that situation, that's going to be one of those hindsight things. So, I think I'm at peace, and I think that it was probably the right decision to do at the time. Because I really do think that if you... I am of the mindset that if someone pushes the rules or breaks them and there's no punishment, they're just going to do it more the next time and the next time. Yeah. And we already have proof of them doing it twice, or relative proof, of the 2 gas attacks. And so... and especially the up and coming, ISIS. I mean, I don't think ISIS would actually go by the code anyway. No. But up and coming, they see, they used gas twice and nothing happened. So why are we even this isn't even being enforced? Yeah. So I like that, but I agree. We need to have a statement and a plan, like you said, and there needs to be either we're doing something about this or we're not, and not just this. We'll shoot a couple missiles.
Not just a reactionary action to the atrocities that happen.
But I do I like a stronger military, so that was kind of...
I like that, and I like that. I really do like that. Trump was sitting down looking at the Chinese president in the face while we're launching 60 missiles into Syria. Yeah. And then, their whole meeting was to talk about trade in North Korea. And Trump's basically saying look, man, I'm not afraid to intervene if I think that the United States interests are threatened. So a part of me likes that. Obviously, you have to be smart about it. You can't just be hoorah USA and then go get yourself into war. That's not what I'm advocating at all. But I think it is a good thing that we have put ourselves back out there as a global force.
Powerhouse.
Yeah, powerhouse. Back to back.
And I think it's cool also, just to end it, that a bunch of other nations in the UN and stuff supported
in
us.
The EU. Yeah, no,
I think a lot of times you'll see them. Well, we don't have to make a statement, so why would we? Let's play it safe.
We did get the full. Dude, Australia backed us. Come on, what else do we need, dude? The Kangaroos approve. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right, guys, that is going to wrap up our main topic this week, and we're going to move right into what triggered us this week. All right, guys, we are back, and we're going to move right into what triggered us this week. This, of course, is where we deny all logic and reasonable thinking and replace it with emotions. And Seth, what triggered you this week, man?
Yeah, so this isn't so much about what triggered me, but what the heck triggered this Uber passenger?
This car, do you want to take the train? Over this car, I'll violate. Whatever, you want to either take me or you going to call my man and tell him that you're not taking me? I'll take you there if you call my man! Call my man and tell him you're not taking me. Do not break my car. Call him! My phone died, you're not taking me to... That's not my fault. Yo.
So this just reaffirms my firm belief that I never want to be in any kind of service industry and have to deal with people on a daily basis because they are psychotic people in this freaking world. Holy crap.
There are crazy people.
So this passenger started screaming out, "Oh, I'm going to say that you raped me." Well, first it started, "I'm going to say you hit me," and then it's like, "You wouldn't call the police. My phone died," or whatever. Then she's like, threatens to like rip up his car, and then starts screaming at people outside that he's raping her or whatever.
Sounds
and
reasonable.
The driver has a dash cam, but like this whole video, he plays it so cool, man. Mad props to him. It's just insane. Luckily, there is a good ending that Uber banned the rider for life from the service, and that's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
It's just I mean, can't imagine being in that mind state that I would lash out or act like that in any way in a public place. I just can't fathom how she can think that that's okay.
Well, one, it wouldn't work for you because you're a white male, but also you're a somewhat sane person, so I don't think you would resort to that. No, it's totally crazy, dude. I worked in the service industry for a while, and people are insane.
Yeah,
there are definitely insane people out there. So this guy definitely handled it well, and that chick is off her chain, man.
All right, so what about you, Jared?
Speaking of crazy chicks, women. So we have Elizabeth Warren here, my favorite politician.
Gotta love her.
Yes. So she tweeted out, I think it was last year, about Equal Pay Day, which I guess is a day, another holiday.
Because we only have to pay the genders the same amount on one day.
On one day, yeah, that's great. I think it's reasonable. Yeah. Anyway, so she tweets out about hashtag Equal Pay Day is not a national day of celebration at all. It's a day of embarrassment.
And honestly, it is. Because people are stupid and think that we don't have equal pay.
And why is it even a holiday anyways? All right, but moving on. So according to the Free Beacon analysis, Elizabeth Warren actually pays women just under 71 cents per every dollar that a man makes. So that's even below the false statistic that people claim that women get paid 77 cents on a dollar. So I'm going to run through some of these jobs, the job titles of the people who get paid more, because this is important because it ties into the gender wage gap myth. So you have the legislative director, who's a male, gets $150,000 a year. You have the deputy chief of staff, who works for Elizabeth Warren, who makes $120,000 a year. Then you have the Massachusetts state director, who gets $150,000 a year. You have the deputy state director, who gets $113,000 a year. So those were all males. And then you have the director of scheduling, who earns $100,000 a year, and she was a female. And no, there's nothing wrong with being a director of scheduling, but is the director of scheduling going to get paid as much as the deputy chief of staff or the Massachusetts state director? No, they are not.
Nope.
They are not. And we've talked about this before. It all goes back to choice and what kind of jobs that you get. It determines your pay, not just a blanket statement of this many women working full-time and this many men. Oh my gosh, they get paid less.
So she was paying them 71 cents if you use their metric.
If you use their metric, yeah. And normally I would not bring this up at all because I don't think there's anything wrong with this at all. But the reason I'm saying it is because she is one of the chief women out there touting for this huge pay gap myth. When you use her own kind of philosophy and standards, she's worse than the national average of these evil corporations. So I think it's great.
If you use their dumb standard that makes no sense.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I love it. I think it's great.
I think the real atrocity is that I think the standard for what a holiday is kind of dropped.
It's falling. You know? It's totally falling. I didn't even know this was a holiday.
Right?
Until I saw this article. Yeah. Every day's a holiday. We almost have as many holidays as Jews now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So many holidays.
I don't even get off of work for most of them anyway.
All right, guys, that is going to wrap up this week's Peanut Gallery podcast. If you like this episode, be sure and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening to us on either iTunes or Google Play, be sure and leave a review. That really helps us out. Until next week, guys, always remember, stay informed.